Good day, and welcome to the SAP Productivity Pack with PepsiCo call. This call is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Ms. Ivanka Benoist. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking time to attend our reference live session today. We have great customer from PepsiCo. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. Today, we will talk about the SAP Productivity Pack solution. I would like to welcome Mel Pulin from ANCILE solution. He will start the conversation with a quick overview about the relationship between SAP and ANCILE, then what the product does, and then we will hand over to Garrett Broders. Garrett, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. Garrett will give us an overview about the story of PepsiCo, how they use the solution, why they choose the solution, some implementation, experience, benefits, and then we will open the lines for questions. With saying that, I would like to start, and Mel, welcome, and please get started.
Great. Thank you, Ivanka. Much appreciated. So as Ivanka said, we'll talk a little bit here about who ANCILE is, our relationship with SAP, as well as the application we're going to be talking about today, which is SAP Productivity Pack. And you'll hear from Garrett at PepsiCo, probably refer to it as uPerform. The branding from an ANCILE perspective is the name uPerform, and SAP has rebranded it as SAP Productivity Pack. So a little bit about ANCILE, just a quick note of our mission. As you see here, our focus is to harness knowledge and help drive workforce productivity. As a software company and as a software partner of SAP's, that's our mission, and that's what we bring as our value proposition. We've been at this, as you see on the left here, for quite a while, focusing on the learning business need as well as performance support right at the time of need for users of software. We focus on communication and validation of the ability to work. And then finally, again, I guess as far as our reach, over many industries and many different customer types. And I have an image of that, as a matter of fact. Over the 16 years that SAP and ANCILE have been working together with SAP reselling our software, we've actually obtained over 4,000 customer licenses and over 19 million individual end users from within those companies. So we have quite a penetration into the market and quite a great acceptance and a validation as well. The companies you see here really represent, I think, more importantly than just the company names, the many industries that we find our software of value, and also how it's actually being used is the same but very customized within each one of these individual companies. Sort of why we exist, what we're focusing on. When we talk about the ultimate value of why SAP even finds this a value to actually bring to SAP customers is because of the needs of the ERP or SAP implementation. From surveys done by Deloitte over the years, and they repeat this survey on a regular basis, the focus and the biggest obstacles or challenges still are based on the people. The software works, the technology gets better and better, but we still need to make sure at the end of the day, true rollout success is because of adoption of users of the software that's being rolled out. That's where we focus. Our focus is on the people and the end users specifically that will be using the software. So when we talk about the why and the actual value that comes from this, our customers have told us these types of things. Reducing time to develop learning content that they're going to use in a classroom setting as well as right at the point of need. Reduce instructor-led training up to 70%. As opposed to relying on a classroom event, now we can actually bring the learning, the on-demand learning, right to people's fingertips. Time to competency. So when the software rolls out, how long does it take for people to become proficient? And we're finding that with our application, that time can be drastically reduced from 25 to 50% as to what it might have been. And then, of course, time being money, it's about an ultimate payback as well. So the key benefits are simple. It's empowering end users and serving as a change management platform. It is a platform, as you'll hear. So we've got some really strong content management capabilities as well as deployment and access capabilities. So we want to make sure we focus on, as you see here, labor and efficiency, people. That's what it's really all about. and realizing the benefits of the enterprise system, SAP, that's actually being rolled out here. How it works is very, very simple. There's three basic components where you can easily record what you're doing rather than having to use any sort of capture or tools or Office applications. You can actually just record what your menu activities are. You can edit them and maintain them and customize them. And then, of course, you can push them out to the users through the SAP interface right at the time of need. That's the claim to fame. Another, on a global basis, is the fact that when you do the publication, we can actually touch up to 32 languages to support users regardless of where they are or the language that they speak. I think one of the differences with Productivity Pack or uPerform, as you'll hear Garrett describe, is that it's also a platform in which people can work together. So if it's being used as part of an SAP rollout project, we have somebody managing that from a project perspective, and the content, the documentation, the learning materials, it can be distributed to the employees, but it doesn't end there. Employees can then contact or collaborate with those who are developing, as well as those who are publishing, and you see it's circular. This is not, the value of Productivity Pack and uPerform does not end at the go live of the individual rollout. That's where it really starts, because that's where usage starts by our users. So we really focus on a long life cycle of value. Even though it may be initially used during the implementation, the value is recognized over the lifetime. So with that, you see here that there's a single parent document, and many, many forms are actually able to be published and then shared out to those who are going to use it, well through the help menu or through a portal where people can search and find exactly what they need. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, pass it to Garrett, and ask him to tell us the story of his journey using uPerform at PepsiCo. Garrett?
Great, thanks. Hopefully everybody can hear me well. If not, somebody just flag me down or speak up. My name is Garrett Broadus. I am with PepsiCo. I've been with PepsiCo for 13 years. My current role is I'm an associate specialist with the learning and development team, and we're part of a global business infrastructure team that we support training, change management, and go lives internationally. So that's my current role. That's what I'm doing now. I want to present you today a deck that I went through at the ANCILE conference earlier this year. As Mal mentioned before, this is kind of referencing uPerform, which is the productivity pack on your side. So I'll try to use the productivity pack language as much as I can, but if I use uPerform, just try to understand that that's the same thing that I'm referring to. All right. So what I'm going to cover today is kind of our history with using the productivity pack, how we're currently using the productivity pack, and what our future plans are for the tool. A little bit about PepsiCo. This usually, well, I won't spend too much time here because I think everybody's kind of familiar with PepsiCo, but the kind of thing I just want to call out here is that our company is much larger than just the soft drink business. These are our global brands that each had over $1 billion in retail sales last year. So you can see we've got the Pepsi, the Lay's, Mountain Dew, Gatorade. Then we have partnerships that a lot of people aren't aware of. We do the bottling for the Starbucks ready-to-drinks, the Frappuccinos and things in the cans, Aquafina water, and we've got many more products besides this that, you know, obviously just didn't have the over $1 billion in sale. So when we are using the tool and when our SAP platform and our other ERP platforms have to support lots of different business models. All right. So our history with the solution pack, we started with InfoPack. That was the initial offering provided in the productivity pack by ANCILE. Then we upgraded to uPerform, version 4.3. We then upgraded to 4.53, and we're currently in the process of upgrading to the newest version, which is 5.2, and I think ours is going to end up being 5.2.8. So we've been using it for quite a while. It's actually interesting. I hadn't thought about it until I presented at the conference earlier this year, but the question was asked, how does PepsiCo use it, and what was my experience with it? I actually began my career with PepsiCo in the accounts payable function, and I was one of the resources that was tapped to do user acceptance testing for our initial SAP Go Live. So I was given training documents to use to do the testing, and I didn't know it at the time, but those training documents were created in info pack, so that's part of the productivity package. Later on in my career, I was involved in another SAP Go Live where I actually provided input into creating those training documentations. Then in yet another SAP Go Live, I actually created them from scratch, used them it again when we moved to an Oracle implementation on one of our other business sides, and then now I'm on the team that administers and owns the tool. So I've actually used the productivity pack throughout my career in many different functions from different sides of the equation. So I've kind of seen this journey, not really knowing it at the time, from beginning to end. So our early uses, or our initial core use, was for our SAP implementation. I believe we did our release 1 in 2005 or 2006, and that was a full North America release for our PepsiCo and QTG businesses. And we used the productivity pack to create work instructions and simulations. And if you're familiar with those terminologies, the work instruction is a Word document, PDF, or an online HTML document that has screenshots and then instructions that you can reference at the time or print off for use later that walks you through how to perform functions in the system step by step by step. The simulations are more of a guided instruction that you can either watch or interact with that actually makes it look like you're using the system without having to create a sandbox environment. So you are able, as a user, to watch somebody perform that function in the system, or you're able to actually drive the simulation and click through the fields and input the keystrokes so that you get a better feel of how to use it. We're also using it for what we call RIS, and this appears to be something that's unique to PepsiCo, but we have SAP implementations across the globe, and we've developed a model to where we go to these markets, and instead of doing our usual SAP implementation, which could run a year or 2 years plus, building all the customizations and integrations, we approach them with a SAP implementation structure with core modules, and we don't allow all the different customizations that most markets are used to. And by doing it that way, we're able to get them up and running on the SAP, ERP system in a matter of months rather than years. So part of that is, with an accelerated implementation schedule like that, training would usually slip because it's usually something that people don't really think about as much as the integration itself or the system itself, and especially on an accelerated timeline. So what we've done is we've built 36 e-learning courses using the productivity pack that allows each one of these markets to take those, make small tweaks to them, whether it's for localization to change the language, or whether they did have small customizations where they need to change a screenshot here or there. But basically they have 36 e-learning courses we can hand off to them and say, take these, use these as part of your training, and then we've taken a lot of the work off their hands and really made that transition easier. And then the last one is a growing field for us that I'll cover later in the deck, is our learning and development teamwork ourselves. We are trying to encourage use of the tool in a broader sense throughout the company, and we also partner with some groups that don't necessarily have an implementation project going on, like the SAP implementations, but they do have something that they need training materials for, and they need those reference documents, and we partner with them and help them build. All right. So how we're currently using it, we have our website that is a productivity pack website, ANCILE uPerform website called Online Help and Training, and that's where we host all of our work instructions, our simulations, and our managed documents. So the work instructions and simulations we talked about before. The managed documents are pretty much everything else that wasn't created with the productivity pack. So a lot of teams have quick reference cards or Excel spreadsheets, PDF documents that are part of the training process that they need to host. So the online help and training, the website, allows those documents to be hosted as well. Our e-learning content we put into our LMS, which our LMS is SuccessFactors. So that's where we host all of our e-learning courses so that we can assign and track completions. And then we have some markets who have opted for local hosting. This is where they've taken the materials created with the productivity pack, and they've decided they want to own it at their own market, and they don't want to use either the LMS or the online help and training. So they create their own websites, and then they go through a process of hosting those documents locally. Below that is our Google Analytics heat map of the activity we've had on that website. This is averaged by month for the year as of October. So you can see, obviously, most of our activity is concentrated in the North American landscape. We had a Russia implementation go live this year, so we're starting to get more activity there. Our South America implementation is ongoing, and we just launched a South Africa, so we're expecting more heat there. We average about 16,000 hits per month to the website for people trying to access the training documentation that was created with the Productivity Pack. On the website, we have 10 different projects. If you're unfamiliar, you can separate your training materials by projects. That way you can kind of segregate who sees what information. You have further organization tools below that level, but for our purposes, we needed 10 projects. We have 2,517 documents created in the Productivity Pack uPerform. So those are work instructions or simulations. Then we have a further 4,446 managed documents, which again is anything other than the Productivity Pack documents, Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Again, we're averaging about 15,000 page views monthly, and we've developed about 150 plus e-learning courses, which we host in our LMS. Okay. For those of you that are unfamiliar, the Productivity Pack that uPerform solution allows you to build templates. These templates define characteristics of what your training material will look like and how it will behave. And one of the efforts we took on that we wanted to make sure we got right was building a global template. What this allows you to do is make a lot of the decisions about how your training material should look before that user or that subject matter expert ever has to use the tool or ever has to even think about making that decision. So we set up PepsiCo approved fonts and colors, and we auto-added or added icons and phrases that they can leverage as part of their training that is PepsiCo approved. That saves them the time of having to create or translate those things. And what that does for them is it streamlines the experience. When they create the training documentation, whether that's doing a work instruction simulation or creating an e-learning course, they're not spending time on the aesthetics. They're not having to worry about how the size of things, the way things look. All they're doing is capturing that business procedure or that content that they need, and then we're letting the template drive most of the work to make it look professional, to make it be branded and have the look and feel of training documentation that others have created. That way, when somebody sees it, they can immediately recognize that this is training, this was PepsiCo created training, and this will probably have the information they need. So the feature that the global template allows the user to have is very important for us, and we spent a lot of time making sure we got that right. This is a preview of what our skin looks like. The skin is another feature that the Productivity Pack allows you to create in the uPerform tool, and this is for e-learning courses. So we've gone in and we've put our PepsiCo branding. We've created our own color scheme for the buttons and the links and things like that, and we've kind of moved things around to get them to have the look and feel like we want. If a user wanted to create an e-learning course, the only things they're entering is that content you see in the middle, beginning with key terms and going down to the bottom. And they're not deciding that the key terms should be at this size and this color, or that the links should be this color. All they're doing is putting in their information and moving on to the next slide. So even with minimal e-learning design experience or instructional design, you're able to create content that looks professional, that is easy to read and doesn't stand out in a bad way from other training. So that's the skin we created. So one of the challenges we were given by our team this year, we've had the Productivity Pack since we started our first SAP implementation at least, and that's been what we've used it for. There was a few other projects that leveraged the tool, but largely it was an SAP solution. that we use to create all our training materials for all our SAP go-lives. At this point, I think we're on our 10th release of SAP go-lives, at least domestically at least. But we recognize the value of using the productivity pack even beyond that. And I say beyond that in two different ways. One, beyond the huge projects of what we call one-up on our side, but beyond these SAP rollouts, there's teams that are using SAP that maybe need to create new training documentation that wasn't created as part of the initial rollout, or they need to update the training documentation that was created 6 or 7 years ago. So we want them to train them and encourage them to use this tool, because a lot of them recognize the training, but they don't know its source. They didn't know that it came from the productivity pack. And we also wanted to encourage teams to look outside of even just SAP uses for the productivity pack, because, for example, our help desk uses a quality center based platform to log tickets and things like that. And they had training documentation, but the training documentation was the kind of training documentation I think a lot of us are used to, is built in Word or PowerPoint with screenshots taken. So we showed them the tool. We showed them how easy it is to capture their business procedures and create the stuff, and they've taken it and run with it and created and hosted their training materials for their associates to use on a daily basis. So the goal we were given was to increase our usage by 10%. And this wasn't end-user usage. This was authors and people that create training documentation. They wanted to build that by a 10% margin over the course of the year. But the challenges, the first was awareness. Like I said, I think everybody in our organization that's worked on anything in the ERP side or the SAP side has probably seen training documentation on our side created with the productivity pack using uPerform, but they don't know that's what they're looking at. You can't look at a document and then, without knowing what's behind the scenes, know how it was built and how it was created. You just think that somebody took a lot of time to put in these screenshots or build these simulations. So we wanted to get the awareness out there that that's the tool that was being used and that it was available to them as well, and they should also use it. The next was installation, which I'll cover later. This may be a unique challenge only to our organization, so I probably won't spend too much time on it. And the last was training. Even though we wanted to grow the adoption of the productivity pack by 10%, they obviously weren't going to give us 10% more resources to do that. And year over year, they want to continue this, so we're not going to have the same level of resources that we have to where we traditionally supported the productivity pack. With markets we have today, our old model was we would assign a member of our team as the lead for that project. They would meet with that team, train them on how to use productivity pack, show them ins and outs, and kind of support them along the way. As we broaden our horizons and say we want other people outside of projects and we want other, outlets for the productivity pack, we weren't able to sustain that model. So we had to build training for the tool that we could give to these users, and kind of following what the productivity pack allows you to do, take away that instructor-led training and take away that human support that's required for these big projects, and really move it into a self-service model where the training material is available for them and they access it as they need it. All right. So we started with the awareness side of it, and what we really wanted to do is build excitement. The old model was we would have what we call ground-back sessions where we would, invite people to a lunch meeting, demo the productivity pack, and show them how easy it is to create the simulations and create the e-learning. And then we get excitement in the room, and if we had 20 people, usually at least 10 of them would immediately want to install the tool and start using it. But again, that's not sustainable when we're trying to grow outside of our organization and outside of our sphere of influence. So we had to build an electronic campaign that allowed everybody that we sent it to one, become excited about it. We accomplished that with a teaser. Two, we would send out a follow-up that had information about what exactly is the uPerform as part of the productivity pack, what can it give them, and overall, in a high level, what does it do. And then we follow that up with more details of you could use it for X, Y, or Z as part of your function. And then finally, we did the call to action with a training or install call that kind of showed them how to use the tool more in depth and more to the point, and also the link to do the actual install. I've got a video that we created as part of the teaser campaign. It's a quick one. I'm actually going to go ahead and skip over it. I don't know how it's going to translate on this online form, but it was just a quick teaser with a superhero theme, because our campaign was branded around allowing each user to become a trained superhero. Here's kind of a preview of what the email campaign looked like outside of the video. So here we've got Super Sue showing up to a user in our organization and letting them know that their old way of developing training is ineffective and that they should switch to uPerform and develop this superpower of creating training. I'm not going to drain this slide, but this is basically just a preview of the email campaign we use to try to grow the adoption. So for installation, and I don't know if you guys are using the Productivity Pack now or if you have the same challenge, but basically we have a lot of users who use the Productivity Pack, but they do not connect to our server. So they've decided that they have a use for it, but it's not something that they want to publish globally. So they can't connect to our server to get all of our customizations, which would be our templates and our skins and things like that. So when they install, we have to find a way to not only get them the program itself, but we also have to get them all our custom items, the templates and the skins. So we worked with our team internally. We have a team that hosts a solution called the PepsiCo Application Installer. You can kind of think of it like the iStore or the Google Play Store, where they bundle applications and any other side things you need to go with that, and then the user goes out there and then from their workstation they just click install, and then now they're up and running the tool. That worked domestically because that's where that's available. In our international space, we actually partnered with a third-party vendor who helped us build a packaged executable to where the users will run the executable, and that runs the initial install, the patch to the newest version, and then it installs all our skins and templates so that once that install is complete, they're up and ready to go with the uPerform tool. And then training. So this is kind of an inception-like quality to it because it's training within training about training. So what we did is we built e-learning courses, a suite of 4 different courses that showed users how to use the Productivity Pack for their purposes. We identified that we had different markets and different user bases that had different needs. So not every user is going to create e-learning. Not every user is going to want to create simulations and work instructions. So we split it out into 4 different courses so that they can get the training that they need that's relevant to them without having to sit through the other things if it wasn't something that was applicable. So course 1 is Overview of uPerform Tool. This is showing them what the Productivity Pack contains, what they could do with it, and how we're currently using it. Course 2 is showing them how to create the simulations and work instructions. Course 3, creating e-learning using the uPerform tool. And then Course 4, publishing on our server. So all 4 of these created, all 4 of these hosted in our LMS, which again was SuccessFactors. And then as we engage these markets and these users and send out this email campaign, we can reference these as the last step. They take the training, and obviously some will still come to us for answers, but for the majority, they've now installed the tool and are using the tool and are trained on the tool without us having to step back in and commit to those resource hours to each individual market or each individual project. Just wanted to, this is a quick, the vendor that we had partnered with to help us with the install and creating our skin and some of the communications was this Left Brain Media company, so I just promised them I'd give them the recognition. And that is it for me. I'd be more than happy to take any questions. I know I saw on the sheets there filled out some specific questions, but yeah, if you guys have anything, I guess we can open it up. I don't know if I need to pass it back to Ivanka or Mal to get that up going.
Thank you.
Yes, Gareth, thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to ask a question on today's conference, please signal by pressing star 1 on your telephone keypad. If you're using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Again, that's star 1 to ask a question, and we'll pause for just a moment to allow everyone an opportunity to signal into the queue. Once again, that is star 1 to ask a question on today's call.
Brian, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, one of the things I would like to say is, first of all, Garrett, thank you. That was a great explanation of your journey through using uPerform. I think some of the things you said that were sort of just a matter of fact for you would be a big deal for a lot of people, in that you actually you are planning on and are using uPerform far beyond just the initial intent for SAP users and SAP rollouts, but it's applicable to pretty much any change that the workforce is being impacted by, whether it be software or process or both. And I think that's kind of exemplary as to how to really leverage the initial investment to really be of value throughout the multiple business units or across the whole enterprise. I thought that was a really great way to leverage the value.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, I think that was referenced in one of the questions as well. My role prior to joining this team, after I did all the SAP implementations from the accounts payable side, they were doing an upgrade to our Oracle application, so I represented the accounts payable function as part of that. And as part of the Oracle upgrade, we created, I want to say it was 300 training documents and simulations using uPerform and Productivity Pack to capture those. We have not found an application yet that the Productivity Pack won't interface with. For those of you that haven't seen it, you launch the program, you tell it you're ready to record, and then you just perform the function in the system. And it records screen by screen every mouse click you make, every keyboard entry you type. And I know Mal kind of showed the screen earlier, but you do that one recording, you hit stop, and it creates a work instruction, a simulation, a cue card, quick reference on the screen flows, and if you wanted to, it also creates test scripts. We're partnering with a few teams now who are actually really excited about using that because they've got an upcoming SAP implementation in our South America market. They've got to create test scripts for the full AT to UAT, and they're going to use uPerform, go in, perform those functions, and then it's going to spit out the Excel sheet with all those steps and screenshots, and they're going to upload that into Quality Center and have their test cases built for them in a fraction of the time it took before. So the uses we have now and the uses that we see going forward, we really are trying to expand it outside of that initial SAP implementation space while still leveraging it, obviously, for our ongoing SAP implementations.
And this is the operator. We do have a